So, you have thought about how you might compare texts, and this will depend on what exam syllabus you are studying. For example, you might be asked to focus on differences or similarities between two different texts, in which case you'll be focusing on a specific perspective. Or you might be asked to consider comparisons between two texts, their ideas and perspectives, in which case you'll be looking at differences and similarities. The important thing is to read the question, know what you're asked to do, and to do it. Now, it's very likely that you will be asked to compare non-fiction text in English language. An example might be like this. The two texts show you the writer's experiences of eating in restaurants. What similarities in their experiences can you identify? Now, in this case, you would be just focusing on similarities. So remember the key words: likewise, similarly, both, also. And what about this question? Compare how the writers present their ideas and perspectives about travelling by ferry. Now here you would be expected to look more at both differences and similarities, so you're juggling more details with this sort of task. It is important to remember with comparative questions that you are dealing with two different texts, possibly written at different times and with different intentions, even though the subject material might be quite similar. Now, to remind you, comparative language is a key part of your toolkit. In the previous session, I provided you with some comparative language examples, and here are some of these in practice. If we're looking at differences, text A is quite informal and colloquial in tone, whereas text B is more serious and has a different intention. It is clear that the travel article text A is aiming to persuade readers to visit Cambodia. In contrast, text B, the editorial, is warning readers about the dangers of some parts of the world. And moving on to look at similarities, both text A and text B are informative texts telling readers about the highlights of California. The perspective in text A is like text B, and that both writers clearly respect everything that education provides. Now, at this stage, we're ready to move on to think about how we can compare in even greater detail. Now, in the last session, I talked to you about comparing text, and I took you through various things that you can do in order to be successful in the examinations. But this time, no cute kittens. We're going to be moving on to consider in greater detail how you might compare longer texts. So when you are comparing, perhaps looking for similarities or differences, it's helpful to know what you have been asked to look for before you start. Then you're able to focus on these key points before you get too far into the text. I'm going to read you two short extracts about rivers. Don't panic, still English, not geography. And here's the first one, extract 1. The River Stark winds its way through the fields and meadows of one of the most beautiful counties in England. One can just imagine sitting on a sun-dappled bank, sipping from a flask of coffee or maybe a glass of something special. The reeds wave gently in the late afternoon breeze, whispering calmly, and tiny ripples and whirls appear in the water, signs of life perhaps. And extract 2. After 3 days of relentless rain, the river's banks have burst. The recently installed flood defences seem to have failed, and what had been pristine wildflower meadows now lie under sludgy water. Alan Thompson, local farmer, commented that he'd never seen anything like it. "I've lived here for 50 years and it's never got this bad," he said. "Sadly, it's going to take a lot of cleaning up before the Stark Valley will return to normal." Okay, so you've just listened to two different extracts, but how different are they? So in extract 1, it reads like some sort of text you might find in a tourist brochure, or maybe it's persuading you to visit the River Stark area. Extract 2 is about the same river area, but it's more of a report, perhaps from a newspaper, and has a different purpose and focus. Let's have a think about a possible question. What differences are there in terms of how the River Stark is portrayed? Okay, so this is how you might approach the question. In the first extract, the writer portrays the River Stark as being tranquil and peaceful. It uses the verb winds and then, a little later on, the phrase, one of the most beautiful counties in England, and this makes the reader imagine it is in a stunning location. Contrastingly, in extract 2, the focus is quite different. Here, the writer is showing the Stark Valley area to be ruined by nature, albeit temporarily, and the adjective relentless, describing the noun rain, shows this, followed by the negative verb failed. The first extract gives the impression that the area is a stunning, beautiful place to visit, but in extract 2, it's somewhere at that time you would probably not choose to visit due to the meadows under sludgy water and also the farmer's views that he'd never seen anything like it. Both texts represent the same area but in very different ways. Now you do need to remember that it will largely depend on your examination syllabus as to what you are asked to compare, so it's important to check if you're not sure what you have to do. When comparing, do make sure that you focus on both texts, both perspectives and ideas, and if you don't, you risk writing an imbalanced response which might end up losing you marks. One thing you can do is highlight key points for comparison in different colours. So you're going to see the two extracts again on the screen, and this time look at the highlighted points in terms of what the texts have in common or not. So my focus here is on ideas and perspectives. So what are the similarities and differences in the ideas and perspectives that the writers have about the River Stark? You'll see that similarities are highlighted in red and differences in blue. Extract 1 again. The River Stark winds its way through the fields and meadows of one of the most beautiful counties in England. One can just imagine sitting on a sun-dappled bank, sipping from a flask of coffee or maybe a glass of something special. The reeds wave gently in the late afternoon breeze, whispering calmly, and tiny ripples and whirls appear in the water, signs of life perhaps. And extract 2. After 3 days of relentless rain, the river's banks have burst. The recently installed flood defences seem to have failed, and what had been pristine wildflower meadows now lie under sludgy water. Alan Thompson, local farmer, commented that he'd never seen anything like it. "I've lived here for 50 years and it's never got this bad," he said. Sadly, it's going to take a lot of cleaning up before the Stark Valley will return to normal. Now hopefully you can see here that there are quite clear similarities and differences in terms of perspectives between both extracts. There may well be other features that you pick up on as well, and if so, brilliant, well done. When you're revising for comparative questions, it's always good to practice by looking at different text, even if this includes pictures or images like I've showed you in the last lesson, but try and find ones that are linked through topic or idea, and this will make it a more realistic process and help to get you more exam ready.